Welcome to the Motorsport Republica podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Chris Vermeulen. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Chris. Really appreciate it. And also having us at your house is amazing.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for coming up. It's I don't mind doing this stuff. It brings back a lot of memories. Feels like a long time ago, and I'm in a different stage of life. But yeah, I like talking motorbikes.
We do as well. One of my earliest memories watching MotoGP was yourself.
Okay.
In those years,
You make me feel old now already. No, that's
well, but it was just that, for me growing up, it was that blue Suzuki which is something that in my memory, I remember that seeing down around the track, seeing an Aussie doing well. So it's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, and it was cool. I got to say, I wasn't ever a colour guy or anything, but our team manager, Paul Denning, was really crucial on, we didn't have the best bike when we started, but if you've got something that's iconic, people will follow. And then the money came, and then the results came better. So it is important as well.
Definitely. Yeah, we're a big livery kind of.
Yeah. I think it's Daniel and I always have the debate of what's the best livery out there, and the Rizzler has to be top three, I reckon.
Yeah, it always gets put in the top three for sure.
And you go around like Phillip Island these days, and you still see people rocking the Rizzler Suzuki jackets, and it's still around.
A lot of replicas on the road.
The road.
They did well with those things, didn't they, as well? Yep.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with yourself these days?
So I live up here on the Sunshine Coast, the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast, and we've got a bit of land. We've got 50 acres, so there's always something to do. And if I don't have anything to do, well, my wife's got a list for me, so that never ends. But I've got two young daughters as well. They're 10, the oldest, and the youngest just about to turn 8. So they ride motorbikes, and because we're on land, they're active, and there's animals, there's chickens, there's cows here, there's dogs, there's guinea pigs, it's like old McDonald's farm. So, and spent a lot of time with them, and I earned well when I was racing, obviously. So I invested some of that money, and
that's awesome. Got
some commercial properties that I manage, so I look after those as well, and that keeps me in sort of a day job. Yeah,
perfect.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you still on the bike at all?
I ride dirt bikes a fair bit.
Yeah.
I don't ride a lot on the road. I've got a couple of adventure bikes. And that's my only sort of road riding.
Yeah.
It's different to ride on the road than to race in Grand Prix or World Superbike or any top level of racing, So I use the roads to get to the dirt bits, and that's where I have my fun.
Yeah, nice.
Wicked.
Yeah, I see a few Instagram posts of you getting around on a couple of gas gases.
Yeah, I've got a couple of gas gases. Yeah. I ride a bit with my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So I got a 350 4-stroke and a 300 2-stroke because I can't decide which one I want. So it's better to have two, and then he doesn't complain either because he's got a bike to ride. But that's good fun.
That's cool. Daniel and I will have to take note, I think.
That's we've been trying to find someone who can tell us what the difference is. We're trying to work it out. We've almost had 3 gas gases in the for the Republica garage.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the lack of stock, but yeah.
So you 2-stroke or 4-stroke, man?
Well, me 4-stroke. I grew up on that.
Yeah.
Jim and Tom.
Yeah.
I think more 2-stroke.
Yeah, definitely definitely 4-stroke.
Oh, you 4-stroke?
You're 4-stroke?
Definitely,
okay, yeah. See, I'm more 2-stroke mad, but I got a 350 4-stroke, and it is easy in some ways.
I need all the help that I can get.
It feels like you're cheating sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you get up this big climb, and you're like, that wasn't actually that hard. And then you get on the 2-stroke, and you're working, and it's different. But yeah, I'm a bit older, so I grew up on the 2-strokes, and I still love them.
They're fun. I just bought
I feel like that's the only thing I missed out on. Sorry to interrupt.
Right.
It was that the 500 2-stroke days. That for me was
infamous. Yeah.
Yep. And I wish I was 10 years older, and that's where I came in, and I got to actually race one. And my teammate John Hopkins started his career on them. He just raves about them and how different they were and how hard they were to ride. So, but
they look so scary.
Yeah.
Like there's some of those high sides you'd see.
I know.
It's stuff that. And No Mercy, and the leathers weren't as good back then as well. Like it was just
the helmets weren't as good, the runoff area wasn't as good. Yeah, there wasn't really safety didn't matter, did it? You're a warrior. Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, it's funny. So do you have anything to do with racing still these days, or
not so much? Apart from my odd bit of TV work. I obviously did a lot more previously, but it's become less. And I did the Australian Grand Prix this year. I did one round of the Australian Superbikes for MA, for ASBK. And I might go to Europe sort of once a year. My wife's English, so sometimes we go over there, and I might do little bits there. But otherwise, no, not really involved in racing. I feel like sometimes I want to be more, but being in Australia, I think we're just a little bit too far away. You know, if I was Spanish or something, I'd probably be involved much more. But my life's here, my wife, my kids, my family, sisters, parents, all that sort of stuff. So that's why I'm back here.
Yeah, you seem like you're enjoying the retirement life.
Yeah, I do the retirement okay.
Yeah,
it's I'm happy where I am right now. Like I say, it's a bug, and it's funny when I go to Phillip Island or we might go to Europe and see a race. When you're actually at the track, it's like, yeah, this is cool, but you know, being on the other side of the world and trying to be involved in the sport, it's not the same. That's why racing is racing, and if you can see it in real life, it's a passion, isn't it? You know, so yeah,
definitely,
sure. So just on that as well, being on the other side of the world and a bit harder, what was the pathway like for you getting overseas?
I guess I started racing dirt bikes from a young age, or not that young, not as young as Casey Stoner, for example, but about 11 years old. Yep. I started doing flat track and became quite fast, sort of 13, 14 years old. Won a lot of races, a lot of championships, but it was quite tough in our day. We had Casey Stoner, Anthony West, Brock Parks, Damien Cudlin, and then a few other guys that didn't go successful in road racing, but we were all sort of within a couple of years of each other. So it was pretty tough dirt track sort of times. And then I wanted to have a go at road racing, and you couldn't till you were 16 at that time. But I could practice at Lakeside at 15. So mum and dad bought me about a 10-year-old 125 GP bike, and went and did a little bit of practicing, and I was quite quick, and I loved it. I just loved the speed. So that's what I lived for. And So I turned 16 in June of 98, did 6 months of racing on a 250 GP bike. I did 3 rounds of the Australian Championship on a 250 GP bike and 3 rounds on a 600 Supersport bike, because Yamaha had a rider that got injured. So they basically had a bike, and I knew the head mechanic, and they just put me on because there was this sort of space and a free bike, and I learned a lot. I won 2 of the 250 races, so I was quite quick on that. But the levels different. The 600 was a lot of the Superbike riders were coming back to ride the 600 Supersport class. So I was running like 8th to 10th or 8th to 15th place, but I'm learning a lot and learning very quickly. And the next year from that experience, Yamaha gave me an R1 I had the option. I got an R1 off Yamaha to race the Australian Superbike Championship when they had this production class involved. So we were allowed 1,000cc production bikes with the 4 cylinders were 750s at the time. So I did a year there, and I was this young kid. I was 16, started out, and you know, there was Craig Connell, Steve Martin, Adam Ferguson, Paul Free was still riding then. There was a lot of top guys, and I was this young kid, and I got a couple of podiums, and our races, a few of our races were on TV. And Barry Sheen was the commentator. So Baz come and introduced himself to me, and I got to know him, and as the year progressed, he's like, "What are you doing next year?" And I said, "Oh, I got an offer to stay here with Kawasaki, an offer from Honda, an offer from Ducati." And he goes, do you want to leave Australia? And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to. You know, the goal is to race World Superbikes or 500s." And he's like, "Oh, well, you need to go to America or England." And I was like, "Oh, sounds easy, but how does that happen?" And he goes, "Oh, let me make a few phone calls." And a couple of weeks later, Baz rings me and he goes, "Oh, I've got your test organised for a team in England for British Supersport and Superstock. They're called Sanyo Honda. You got to head over there in about 3 weeks' time." Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
I'm 17 by then. I go off the phone and tell mum, and she's like, "Well, hang on a minute, you know, like, wait, where are we going with this?" But I went over and in the same phone call, he goes, "I also rang Dainese. He speaks fluent Italian, or spoke fluent Italian. And I got your 2 leather suits. I got your 3 pairs of gloves. I got you some AGV helmets." Because mum and dad were still paying for all this stuff. So mum and dad thought it was like Christmas, because they were getting this free stuff. And
so he just saw something in you, and
he loved helping a lot of people, you know. Just give me the opportunities.
Yeah, he didn't have to do that, you know. That's the amazing thing.
But he was still a massive star, and I got a lot to owe to Barry. But later on that year and the next year, I saw him at the British GP, and he was huge. You know, I mean, the autograph tent, so they had Kenny Roberts Jr. as world champion, Valentino Rossi, Alex Crivier was there, Max Biaggi, and then Barry Sheen as an ex-rider, and his queue was 10 times longer than all the rest put together.
Yeah.
You know,
Big names.
and he made time for and he kissed every woman on the cheek twice. And he, you know, like he just had charisma. There was something about Buzz. He was very cool.
Yeah, we're slowly hearing more and more stories about Barry Sheen because he was just before our time.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting. And he embraced Australia as well and Australians.
So he embraced
Australia.
He did, very much so. Like it wasn't only me help. Like, from the early days, it was Wayne Gardner. Like he had a bit of help with Wayne. You know, when Barry was world champion, this Aussie guy's coming to England. Baz helped him, and then Mick Doohan. So I'm still friends with Barry's son, Freddie Sheen. Yep. He's a couple of years younger than me, and Freddie showed me he's got an original fax paper that Barry sent to the president of HRC, saying there's this young Australian, Michael Doohan, his name is. He's going really good over here, and Yamaha want to put him on a 500. You really need to look at this guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's more or less is what it says. He helped Troy Corser, Gary McCoy. He set up everything. Gary McCoy did like 3 Australian road races. Done a really good speedway rider. Did 3 races. Barry saw some potential. There was a 125 position opening at the Australian Grand Prix, and Baz said, "Oh, you got to put this young guy on." And then he went and got himself a world championship ride out of it. You know, like he just loved helping people that put the effort in themselves.
Doesn't seem like it happens like that these days. It's just,
I think the whole sport's different as well. It's a lot more. I don't know what the right word is. There's a lot more money involved, basically. I think, you know.
Yeah. It's definitely about it's still about who you know, though. That's
very much so.
That's motor racing in general and money. So
does help. Amazing. Helps it go around.
Yeah, definitely.
So going over to Europe, how daunting was that? Because obviously you were so young, and then, you know, you're racing in a brand new country. Like, it must have been quite full on.
It was. My parents have got pretty good. Sorry, I was holding the mic wrong. Pretty good stories from it. You know, when I left here in January, like Sunshine Coast, Queensland, January summer, and landed in England. It was bloody freezing, and I had one pair of jeans, you know, and shorts, and I thought all the trees were dead because I hadn't seen many deciduous trees. And so it was, but I was there just to ride bikes. So I thought it was fantastic. And I remember we tested in Spain, just south of Barcelona. And I remember my mum came over with me. Mum and dad own a business, and dad couldn't leave for work. So mum came with me. I was still a minor, obviously. And I remember telling mum, like, there was a rack of wheels and tires, and I said, "See, I get to use all of them," you know, because racing here, we had a budget of one set of tires per weekend. So I'd run out on my old tires and then put a new set in, do a couple laps in qualifying, and then use them for the races. And then I remember going there, and this team was sponsored by Dunlop, and we had like 6 fronts and 10 rear tires. I'm thinking, this is for a test. I got all those tires to use. It was cool. But it was daunting. I reckon probably halfway through that first year, I did get homesick, you know, because there's a bit of a break. So while I was racing and busy, it was fine, but you've left all your friends, your family, everything you know. And I was living in the UK, and look, I had a great team, and I knew some people, but it was a little bit daunting, I think, at 17, going through that. But I guess the results came, and it's what I love doing. So that was more important, and it's what I love. I never crossed my mind to stop and just come back home, put it that way. So.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible.
That's absolutely wicked, man. I couldn't imagine doing that at 17. No way.
When I look at it now, I've got kids. I'm like, this is the last thing I'm going to let my daughters do, you know, like head to Europe at 17. So
yeah, it'd be.
And so the following year was my first year in the World Championship, and I pretty much just had a little motorhome and drove around to races. Yeah. You know, like it's when I look at it now, you go, wow. But at the time I was like, oh, this is what I do, you know? So I'm just off, and here I go. And yeah, I had my 18th birthday on my own, on my way between maybe a German race and an Italian race. I was at a caravan park in Austria on a lake. You know, it was pre-data on mobile phones or anything. I had a phone, but it's too expensive to call anyone. So just hung out, you know. So
yeah, it's some wild stories.
Yeah, very different.
You grew up quickly, huh?
In some way, my wife will say in some ways I'm grown up. I grew up quickly in other ways.
Still grown up. So what was the process from there? You went to Europe. Yep. What did you race?
I raced the British Championship that first year for Sanyo Honda. So we were was sort of like the second Honda team. And I rode in Supersport and Superstock. So the 600 in Supersport and Superstock. That was the 954 Fireblade from 2000.
Yep.
And did pretty well. My first round was at Brands Hatch. Didn't know any of the tracks, obviously. Qualified on the front row of the grid. So it was all about making a name for yourself. So, and all the races are televised. And I remember Keith Ewan was one of the TV commentators there, and he's like, "Who's this kid?" You know, Barry told me about him, but I didn't think he'd be on the front row of the grid. So it's all about, you know, when you get the opportunities, making the most of them. And a few podiums, a few race wins that year. I think I finished third maybe in the Superstock Championship and fourth or fifth in the Supersport Championship. Some pretty fast guys. Bit of inconsistency, but I was young. But from that, I wildcarded in the European Superstock race that came with World Superbikes to Donington.
Yeah. And
I qualified on pole, fastest lap, won the race by about 15 seconds. And so that opened a lot of doors because I'd been to Donington for a British round earlier that year, so I knew the track. So it just made it. So did the other riders, but it helped me because everywhere I went that year was a new track. That opened doors. So at the end of that year, that was the year 2000, Castrol Honda had a World Supersport rider that injured themselves, and I got the call up to fill in. So I went to Assen. I did Assen, Lausitzring in Germany, and then Brands Hatch. And Assen, I finished 10th. Lausitzring qualified on the second row of the grid. Got taken out the first corner with it was a big pile up. And then Brands was not too bad, but again, difficult track. I had to learn the full circuit.
It's a wild track, Brands Hatch. Underrated.
Really scary.
Yeah. Not much runoff.
Not much runoff.
Not much runoff.
A lot of undulation.
I never did well there. So I went there for a lot of World Supersport and Superbike races, and I got at a couple of podiums, which is good, but I was never... It was not somewhere I excelled. You know?
Yeah.
There were some British tracks that were worse. I don't know if you've seen some of them. Like
there's some real
Cadwell Park.
Cadwell Park. Yeah.
I remember turning up to Cadwell Park the first time, and we drove in, and it's like in this really nice area, like countryside, rolling hills, and then there's this walked on, and I didn't realize it's on the track. I thought it was the pit lane, and it's narrow, and it's like goes sort of between trees, and I'm thinking, where's the track? And they're like, you're standing on it. I'm like, it was.
We don't build them like here in Australia.
Oh, thank God!
Fast flowing. They had some wacky. We always it's got that jump in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's got a jump in it.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
You get air.
Seen Top Rack around there.
Yeah, Johnny Ray's I think leaped it as well.
Yeah.
That's nice.
You know, Josh Brooks, the Australian.
Yep.
He's really good around it, but he's a good dirt bike rider as well.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
What's your favorite circuit?
Probably Laguna Seca.
Wow.
Yeah,
Laguna
nice.
and Phillip Island. Even though I didn't do well on a MotoGP bike at Phillip Island, this thing just didn't work around there.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two I reckon.
Yeah, Laguna Seca's a lot of riders say that.
Yeah.
I wish it was still on the calendar.
It's cool.
Yeah.
You know, the other place that was really good, it's not my favorite, but it's right up there, is Istanbul in Turkey when we went there for a couple of years.
Yeah, that turn 8.
Yeah.
Like those left-handers.
And then the kink in the back straight was nearly flat out.
Yeah.
You just rolled and back on one of the fastest corners in the world. I like that place too. But
That's grouse.
that was political why we didn't go there in the end. So.
Yeah.
I think Bernie Eccleston owned it.
Okay.
And then he didn't want bikes to go. And then he obviously lost the ownership of F1. So
Well, F1 went back there a few years ago. And it was during COVID times, and it was like winter. And they just couldn't get it. It couldn't grip. Like it was a wild race, and it started raining, and then But yeah, wild circuit.
Yeah,
really cool circuit. That's
really cool.
Famous at the end of the straight where Webber and Vettel collided.
Is that where that? Okay.
Yeah, that's the end of the. That's at the end of the straight.
Yeah,
back straight.
Yes,
interesting. Yes. So you're racing BSB, doing well there.
Mm-hmm.
You then get the call up, obviously, for World Supersport.
World Supersport, and I did all right in that bike, and that was 2000. They offered me a full-time ride for 2001, and I thought, this is cool. So I signed for Castrol Honda. Yeah, you know, the iconic colours.
How good's that?
I was the only Supersport rider, and they had 2 Superbike riders in Colin Edwards and Tadeo Carter. So I'm in the garage with like team. 2 of my heroes, and just thinking, how cool is this? But it was the worst year of my international career, pretty much.
Wow.
So we were the only. No, there was 2 other bikes on Michelin's, but there was 3 of us on Michelin's, and we just got smoked by Pirelli and Dunlop pretty much. And we struggled with front tires. There was no more development in Supersport tires. So the Superbikes were on 16.5-inch slicks. We were on a 17-inch treaded tire. It was quite different. And Pirelli and Dunlop I think I got 1/5 place and a lot of crashes and just really inconsistent. But it was down to tires mainly. So it was like, wow, going from a high and my career's accelerating to like, I finished 17th in the World Championship Supersport. It's like, it's not really anything to cry home about. There weren't really many opportunities for the next year, but I got the opportunity to sign with Van Zon Honda, which was sort of a second team to Tenkate in World Supersport. And it was run by a Belgian guy called Werner Damon, and he was the other rider. So he'd seen me on track, thought, I've got some potential, and brought me in. And that year I had a pretty good bike, not quite as good as the Tenkate bikes, but pretty close. But I had a pole position, quite a few front row starts, 2 or 3 podiums, and that really opened the door. And then Tenkate gave me a ride in World Supersport for 2003, and that's when we wrapped up the championship.
Beautiful.
So, it sort of went bad, and then it went quite good pretty quickly.
So when you're that championship year, do you just feel everything just click with the bike? Is it a mindset? Is it just team, everything?
All of those points. It's like the first round I finished second to Fujiwara at Valencia, and I thought, well, we're on here. Like, it was pretty good. Then we came to Phillip Island, was the second round, and I fastest in every session, pole position, and I won the race. It was my first ever full world championship win. And I remember I won by a fair way, and just thinking like, you're hearing noises, you don't want to make a mistake, there's all that going through your head. Then we went to Suzuka in Japan. I finished 4th, but Fujiwara didn't have a great race. And then we were on to Europe, and there was just a lot of wins. I mean, a bad weekend, I was 3rd. At Monza, I remember in practice, I ran off the track down one of those, it's obviously very fast, into a gravel trap, and I broke the ligament off my thumb here, and my thumb dislocated right back. I didn't crash, and I was in so much pain. My hand was huge. They had to get like a double or triple XL glove, cut it, put an extra panel in it to make it fit for the race. I was in painkillers, and I still went and won the race on Sunday. Like when everything's right, it's right. And it was really strong. And it was the same a couple of years later when we were on the Superbike. With Tenkate. Just eventually things started to click with the bike, with the tires, everything, and it's like a bad weekend, we were 4th or 5th. A good weekend, it was like I can run around with one hand on the handlebar and I'm still competitive, and don't ask me how that happens sometimes and not other times, but it's a good feeling when it is. You feel invincible.
I was gonna say it's kind of the magic of motorsport sometimes. It's just it just clicks. I was actually just listening to a podcast with Ben Spies and Gypsy Tales, and it was interesting what he said is when he was on a MotoGP bike, I think he said it was 4 combined days he ever felt comfortable on that motorcycle, especially coming from World Superbikes to MotoGP, where Grand Prix bikes are obviously not production based, prototypes. It's so different, but once you're on the bike and it's clicking, it must be just magical.
It is. It is really good, and I do remember those days, and I had a few of them on the Grand Prix bike as well, but less compared to the Superbike. And I think Ben's right. I think that more production based bike, it allows a bit more flex. The Pirelli tire was very different to the tires we were using, especially when it was open tire rule in MotoGP. So they gave a bit more feeling as well. And it was easier to feel good. Like the Grand Prix bike, there's a lot more stuff you got to play with to get right. But when it is clicking, it's unreal.
Oh yeah, I bet.
The start of that season, did you hop on that bike in testing and just go, this feels great?
Is this in the Supersport days?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay.
It was. I remember when we first got the bike. So Carl Muggeridge was going to be my teammate.
Yeah.
And we turned up. Fabien Ferret had won the championship the year before. On the old CBR 1000, and we got the 03 one. Was the first time the pipe came up under the seat.
Yeah.
And I remember we went Honda, because we were the main Honda team. Honda brought out our supported pack or whatever. all their bits they put on it, like HRC. And we turned up to Estoril to test, and so we had Fabian's bikes from last year, the championship bike, because he went to Kawasaki, and then the new bikes. And we got on the new ones, and they were just terrible. Like, it was so bad. We were like, oh, here we go. This what's going on here? And I remember Carl and I going, oh, we're gonna have to ride the old bike for a while. But Tenkata did their magic, and that's where they were good. It was just the little details in bringing everything together, and no one could build a Supersport bike like them. You know, they could really put something successful together. Unbelievable. And even our Superbike days, like when I went there in 04, we weren't HRC supported. It was Tenkata. Like, the fairings were duct taped together. The steering damper was electronic underneath, and they thought it was working, but how they changed the ECU, there was no steering damper, because I used to say the thing used to shake, and well, it was hard to hang on to. But man, they could put the right bits in to make the thing work, you know. So it was it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's So we're 05?
Yeah, it was 04, and then 04 and 05 I rode for Tenkata in World Superbike.
World Superbikes,
Yep. 04 I led the championship with 3 races to go, 1.5 rounds after the first race in Imola, and
that would have been a wild circuit.
Yeah, it was cool. I loved Imola. Really liked Imola. Yeah. And I finished second in the first race to Regis Laconi.
Yep.
And I think I led the championship by 1 point or 3 points or something over Laconi. So there was myself, Laconi, Tosland, and Haga, all really close points. Because I was a rookie, so my start of my year was terrible. But then I won like 3 or 4 on a trot and caught back a heap of points. And anyway, finished second there to Laconi, did quite well. Went out in the warm-up lap for the second race on my bike, and said it had like it was messy. It was plant up, like it just wouldn't run properly. So I come back to the grid, and the team wheeled it off and wheeled the other bike back on. And so I hadn't ridden, and then we got the warm-up lap. I'd taken off, and one of the mechanics didn't connect an oil hose properly. And I went into turn 1 and oil on the back tire and just did this huge high side. And there's a photo around somewhere. Giovanni Busset was a rider, Ducati. He gave me a lift back to the pits. He actually got in trouble because Tardozzi kicked up a lot of stuff about it because I like David. We got on really well, but obviously he's fighting for his team, and I'm challenging his team. And Busset got a ride-through penalty, but I jumped the pit wall, got on my spare bike, had to pass the safety car, and I come back to about 5th. And then I found out I had a broken scaphoid, a chipped hip, a broken bone in my foot as well. And I was second in the World Championship. And then we went to the last round, so I've got 3 broken bones. The next weekend, roast Magnicor, and the bike stopped in both races. So it was a killer end to the championship. And then 05, we started as championship favourites, but we just got caught off guard. We weren't competitive. Troy Corsa was really strong on that Suzuki. He came out firing and won a lot of races at the start of the year. And it was probably about 4th or 5th round in before we sort of got our groove going. And I think I won. It might have been 6 of the last 8 races.
Wow.
There was 1 second place, and then the very last race, the chain fell off. But Corsa won it with a full round to go, the championship. We were just too many points behind, and I finished second in that World Championship. But I remember I lost 25 points for a win at Monza because my bike didn't cut off. So we had a little bit of bad luck.
Yeah.
And Tenkata, Honda wanted me to stay in World Superbike. I wanted to go to MotoGP. I got an opportunity with Suzuki. Honda thought I was bluffing them. Long story short, I signed with Suzuki, and Honda offered me more than double the money that Suzuki paid me to stay in World Superbike because they won the championship one. And I just said straight out, I said, look, in my eyes, I've won the championship. You've lost it, because we had a few mechanical issues that lost us points. I know that happens to everyone, but I said, no, I need to get to MotoGP. Yeah. And so that's when I changed to Suzuki.
Wow. How did that all come about of Suzuki approaching you?
So I had a meeting with Paul Denning probably, I'm going to say like August of 05. And he'd shown a little bit of interest that there might be a spot available. I met him at Heathrow Airport. I was flying in from somewhere. He was flying in from a GP, and I was like, cool, that's like a door open. But basically, the end of 2005, Troy Bayliss broke his wrist, right, a dirt bike here, and I got to fill in for him at Phillip Island.
Yep.
And so, because I was Honda's sort of main outside
right.
guy, so I raced at Imola, Magny-Cours, straight to Phillip Island. Like I wrapped up the Superbike Championship, finished second, went to Phillip Island. Never ridden Michelin's, never ridden carbon brakes, never ridden a MotoGP bike, and I either finished 10th or 11th. I can't remember. I was somewhere there. Yeah, wow. Anyway,
great effort.
I was very happy with it.
Yeah.
And that's when Denning came. There's basically a contract on the table now, and that's when I was talking to Honda. Is there anything? And they're like, no. But come to Turkey next weekend. So it's 4 weekends in a row. So I went to Istanbul, and I beat nearly every other Honda rider. I beat Biaggi. I beat Tamada. I beat a few other Honda guys. So I thought, this is good, but I've got a lot I need to learn about riding these GP bikes. And Honda still thought I was bluffing. So it was in Turkey that I signed for Suzuki MotoGP for the following year. Same
weekend.
And then I was supposed to go to Valencia 2 weeks later, but then obviously when I signed for Suzuki, Honda said, no, you're not riding that now. So, but I got to tell you that V5 990 Honda MotoGP bike, I've never ridden an engine like it. There's no wonder that it was the easiest motor to ride in the world. If you could if Michelin would give you the good tires, that's another story. But
please elaborate.
I remember Bayliss telling me, there's difference with Michelin. You know, Valentino gets stuff, and then
Jorge Martin, he has a theory about that as well.
His teammate, Bayliss's teammate, who was mine for those 2 races, was Alex Barros. I could tell you, my numbers were like, for my tire was like 5 numbers long, and his were like 12 numbers long.
Interesting.
And I'm like, can I get the tire that Alex is? Yours is the same, except it's just this little bit different. I'm thinking, here we go. So, this is so different. But from an engine, that Honda 990, that was the coolest thing. And I had no electronics on my Honda Superbike in 04 and 05, like zero. Wow. So we had 220 horsepower in first gear or 6 gear. You just rode it up there. You know, you had a clutch, a brake, front and rear brake, and a throttle. And I got to the MotoGP bike, and I remember coming onto the straight at Phillip Island, and my crew chief he goes, you're using full power and full throttle in fourth. And I went, yeah. He goes, we'll give you more power. I'm like, there's more? There's more power? And he's like, yeah, we could give. I'm like, yeah, we'll have more, you know. But
God, you can see your face really light up when you talk about that bike. It must have just been an experience.
It was awesome. It was so cool. But going from a superbike that was very quick to that, I remember the step and having to use the rear brake as you crest the hill at Phillip Island, because at over 300, it wanted to wheelie. Wow. You know, like electronics were way less advanced, but it had some.
Yeah.
But wow, it was cool. Yeah, very cool. That's when I knew I wanted to stay in MotoGP.
Is there too much electronics now, you reckon?
Yep.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. I know street bikes have got them now, and I know everything's evolving. But the racing would be better with a lot less aero.
Yeah.
However they manage that.
We have a big theory on that.
Yeah, with no ride height devices and with way, way less electronics. British Superbike do a great job with their minimal electronic system.
Yeah.
Very minimal.
And it's a successful championship as well.
That's a great championship.
And it makes for great racing.
Well, they talk about safety, but there's still massive high sides. There's still
Look at Jack's high side on the weekend. Jack Miller's. It'll happen.
There's still more crashes than ever in MotoGP.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because there's only one area you can risk now.
Yeah.
And that's going in. So there's all these front end crashes. Yeah. I think, in my opinion, Formula One is about technology. MotoGP will never compete with Formula One in technology.
Correct.
MotoGP is successful, and it's a sport that's loved because the racing is exciting.
Yeah.
And people see these guys sitting on a machine, and they're warriors. You know, they got no protection, and they're flying, and they're going to pass each other, and there's going to be 20 overtakes for the lead in a race. That's what we need to see, and that's what in my opinion, that's what will make MotoGP exciting again. How they do that, it's not easy. I don't pretend to know, go and change the rules and do this and do that. You know, there's lots of money invested there, and there's lots of different interests. So
Yeah, we have this conversation probably weekly, talk about aero and the different races. Like you look at Phillip Island, you look at Thailand, and they all were completely different races. Later on in the season, there was just that... you just found the overheating, the tyres, the tyre pressures. It's just... They've nearly got it. They're just...
almost, but not quite.
The tyre pressure thing.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
The Giantonio, it was 0.01 of a bar under.
It's ridiculous.
That's 0.1 of a PSI, basically.
Nothing.
And he gets penalised.
He nearly won the race.
And is the rule next year that they get disqualified?
Oh, I think it's...
If it happens twice
or something. So like, that's just going to ruin the championship. It's just not... Yeah.
And if it decides the championship like that, that's worse.
It. You know, and that's what Frankie Carcetti, Fabio's crew chief, said. Saturday sprint race, we were 0.2 of a bar high. So we worked off that and we went 0.2 lower or 0.15 lower because we knew this and that. But we went just under. And in 0.2 of a bar over, he had nothing. Yeah. No grip. It's like, how do you know if you're going to follow someone?
And it's about humidity. It's about temperature. All sorts of stuff.
I understand Michelin might need that for safety and they don't want a tyre to go, but they're going to have to change something else then. You know, and it's not really Michelin's fault. Michelin have built a tyre around bikes from 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Not bikes with all these wings hanging off them.
Yeah, that's right.
That force all this pressure. So
that's a great point.
The tyre technology hasn't kept up with where the bikes have gone.
I think we've noticed that too throughout the season. You can see it.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yep.
People struggling. I mean, take Martin from Qatar.
Yep.
Prime example.
Yep. Exactly. That's though, I reckon, and it's always happened with one. Sometimes you get a dud tyre.
Yeah, there's that.
And when it's the championship, it's talked about a lot.
Of course.
And they might say, and it's really hard. Like Michelin say they're going to go back and they're going to cut this tyre and evaluate it. But if he's 1% off, 1%, that's 1 second a lap. Yeah, he wasn't even that. He was half a second a lap.
Yeah.
And it kills you, right? It kills your championship. That's half of 1%. How can they evaluate if the tyre is? You know what I mean? It's a tricky one. Yeah.
It's a tough spot to be in. Just on that, I want to ask on Martin, what do you think about? Did you watch the Qatar race?
Yes.
At all? So I just want to know your thoughts on when he got past and just his body language, like shaking the head. Is that like something you think that's sort of? I don't want to say weak-minded, but like he's already defeated.
Yeah, I think so too.
That just ruins him for the rest of the race.
But that's probably. Well, excuse me. That's probably what makes him successful too.
Yes,
because he's hot-headed. He puts it all on the line.
Yeah.
But now he knows. And as a rider, when there's a bad tyre or something, you know, it's something hard to measure, but it's just a feeling. And it might be 3/10 a lap, and you go, nah, something's not right in the box. And when you're in that world, it's a disaster. Like, oh, geez, get that tyre out, you know, like. And he probably knew, and he's going, what can I do? I've got to hang out here for another 23 laps or whatever it was at the time. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just interesting. We were talking about it because we seen him do the same thing last night.
That's right. You said last night. We saw him again, and then Daniel's like, basically said straight away, he's done. He's done. It was like 3 corners later.
That's right. He put the pass on Vinales, and Vinales passed him back, and he's shaking his head, and you're like, well, it's not Maverick's fault. He's still racing. He's racing. He's not just going to pull aside and let you go.
Through,
like, it's not 100%. It's not the way it goes, is it? Yeah.
No, exactly.
So, no, I get that. Yeah, and that might be his immaturity, I guess. You know, he's not as experienced.
Just so young as well. Like, just crazy these kids
and these Latin background. Let's face it, they're flamboyant, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's true. It's like Aleix Espargaro. He's the same. He's just hot-headed.
That's different. That's just
he went over the line quite a few times, I think.
Yep. Yeah. Look, I like Aleix as a person, but man, he pushes some points a bit too far, doesn't he? At times, so.
Yeah.
He just needs to know when to just
don't slap people on the helmet. It's not going to do anything.
So take us back to 06 MotoGP bike.
Yep.
Day one. What was it like?
The first time I rode the bike would have been Valencia test. So the end of 05.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to the Valencia race. I just turned up on the Monday for the Tuesday test. And I got on it and I was fast. Because Valencia's, it's a funny track. And I thought, geez, this thing turns good. It lacked power, the Suzuki, and its electronic system wasn't as advanced as some of the others. They used Mitsubishi electronics in the early days compared to Magneti Marelli. But like testing, I was quick. I was as quick as my teammate, Hopkins, or maybe quicker. I don't remember, but everything worked really well. But then we went to Sepang and it's a track that needed more horsepower, a track I didn't know, so I'd never been there before. I had to learn that, and I was like, oh, this is back to reality. You know, now we're back to 15th fastest or whatever. So it was a bit of work, and I reckon the hardest thing for me in 06 coming from Superbike was I knew about 50% of the tracks. So I wasn't allowed to go and ride any bike on the tracks before I raced at that time. That was the rule. So
you couldn't even take a production bike.
No, I'm pretty sure there was something anyway.
Yeah.
We couldn't do, apart from our testing.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, I can't remember. I didn't know Magello. I didn't know Motegi. I didn't. There was a lot of tracks.
You couldn't play it on the PlayStation back then either, could you?
Well, there was nothing like that. There was no social media. It wasn't easy. You know,
Wikipedia. No, maybe there was Wikipedia.
So there was no simulators. There was no. Yeah, exactly. So it was tricky, and that put me always. I felt like I was always on the back foot because you're like a day behind. You're trying to learn the track.
Practice one would have just been a learning curve.
And exactly.
Yeah.
So it was tough that year, but then a few tracks that I did know, like Laguna Seca, I put it on pole. Turkey, I put it on pole. And Laguna, I probably should have been on the podium. I probably should have won it. I would have been on the podium, but we had a fuel pump that malfunctioned. It was boiling the fuel. The fuel was boiling before it was making its way to the engine because it was really hot.
Yeah.
So my bike cut. I finished 5th, but it was just
Cutting
missing.
out.
It was cutting out. Yeah. So Nikki won that race. And then came to Phillip Island, and it was a flag to flag, and my first ever podium. So I finished second there. So.
We rewatched that race the other day.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we did.
That was an amazing year in MotoGP 06.
It was. So I came in the same year as a lot of riders. Randy DePunier, Tony Elias, Casey Stoner, Danny Pedrosa, myself. There might have been other rookies. Maybe Sylvain Gintoli, or he was the next year
to come in.
Yeah, I know.
That's
so
Casey
Stoner wasn't even Rookie of the Year. Danny Pedrosa was Rookie of the Year. It was pretty tough. Tough championship to come in, and then you had the Rossi Hayden battle that year. Valentino fell off in front of me at Valencia.
We just saw a photo of that. We were going to ask you that.
He really struggled. He was really struggling, but Valencia's hard to pass. So I'm at the end of my first year thinking, I'm trying to put a move on him, but I didn't want to do what Martin did to Marquez, basically.
Well, you saw that
because if I take Valentino Rossi out, I'm not going to walk out of this place alive, 100%. You know? So I'm like, I know he's struggling, but I can't quite. I kept losing out off the turn, and I couldn't get. And then he just went down. So
it's
the same. I reckon he may have had a dud.
I think that was another dud tire
that's a big
scenario.
Conspiracy.
And you don't know because, look, there were other times that year where I saw Valentino on track or I was racing close to him, but there was never really a time where I was going, geez, this guy's holding me up a lot. You know, I don't know. Maybe it was just pressure too. Who knows?
Yeah. When you saw him crash in 06, were you just like, Jesus, like this is...
No, I was like, that's one less guy I got to get past. That's all I thought. I didn't really care.
It's a racerverse fan mindset, right?
Such a different mindset.
That's one less guy. And I'm like, because I could still see the front guys. And I could see, well, there were 2 Ducatis. I knew that. And I could see, and we weren't that far behind, but I was like, well, we can get up to there. But yeah, I think I had a gearbox problem later in the race and I actually stopped, but I can't remember exactly. Yeah.
So Troy Bayliss won that race.
Yeah.
God, what a year. That just
I know, it's cool.
Back at that.
So Bayliss was in the World Championship for longer than me, earlier than me.
Yeah.
Not quite about the same many years. And we crossed through World Superbike. I was in Supersport. Then he went to MotoGP. I went to Superbike. Then I filled in for him. Then I raced Grand Prix and he went back to Superbike. So I've only ever done one World Championship race against Troy and he won it. It was that one, Valencia 06. So he's got the record. There you go.
God, that's amazing.
Tell us the differences between you came in the 990cc era and then raced the 800s. How different were those two motorcycles?
Initially quite different. So yeah, that again goes back to the Valencia test at the end of 06. We had our 990 Suzuki, which wasn't too bad. We had pneumatic valves.
Yeah.
We were the first Grand Prix bike to have pneumatic valves. So Suzuki put a lot of development into 06, and we had a couple of DNFs because they were just getting stuff ready for their 800. And pretty much our first test at Valencia was we finished on Sunday. They pulled the 990 engine out, stuck an 800 in the exact bike.
Oh,
we finished the Grand Prix, And 2 days later, we tested and went half a second faster.
So different, same chassis and everything.
Identical. That's not where we went to. We evolved from there, but that was the first test. They just shoved an 800 motor into that 990 chassis.
That's amazing.
And went faster. And I remember thinking in Valencia, especially all that infield stuff, this thing just turns like a 250.
Yeah.
Not a big 500. It wasn't like, get it in the corner and like trying to get this. It just like, wow. And that's where the speed came. And we were maybe 10 Ks an hour slower down the straight.
Yeah.
But it was like, wow, this is going to be good. And that was our best year. Suzuki sacrificed a bit of 06 to develop a good bike for 07. And both Hopkins and myself were pretty competitive in 07. And that's sort of what it takes when you're the smallest manufacturer with only 2 bikes on the grid.
Yeah.
That's how they got the most out of it, basically. Yeah.
So take us back to 07, best year for yourself, 6th in the championship.
Yep.
Talk us through that famous Le Mans race. What was the feeling going into it? Did you think I'm a shot here or?
No, yes. It's funny. Hey, you sort of think that every race.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm not a shot, but I'm going to do like it's a funny thing to explain. It's not cockiness, but you sort of just have this belief in yourself.
Of course.
Most of the time, and I think most of the guys do on the grid.
To be there, you're going to have to.
Yeah.
One guy only has to something change or not be right, and you're going to be past them. Like the differences are so small. So no, I just remember the race started out dry. It was sort of spitting at the start, and then the rain got heavier, and it was flag to flag, and we came in. And I normally say my team were very, very good, the Suzuki Grand Prix team, and they normally gave me a very good bike. But for the wet bike, we did no wet test practice over that weekend. The wet bike was terrible. It was the tires were great and chassis setup was good, but electronically, like the engine setup, it was shocking. So I turned the traction control off, like back down to really low, and the engine brake control kept locking the wheel everywhere. So I was going in the corners like the old Superbikes with the clutch in and just using the rear brake because it was horrible. It was horrible. So it kept me on my toes and I had to work hard. And then I had this big gap and I thought, we might win one here. And when I went across the line, for me, the greatest part of that was the team, what we'd done as a group. So those guys hadn't won a race since the 500cc days.
Since Kenny Roberts Jr.
Since Kenny Jr. on a 500 two-stroke. So they'd spent millions and millions and millions every year to go racing, and we finally won one. And the team, and what it meant to them, that's where I was excited. Like, I love winning myself, but that was my job. That's what I was expected to do. If I had the equipment and everything put there for me, that was my job. That's what I had to do. But yeah, it was for the rest of the guys. I was so excited and what it meant to them and what it meant for a manufacturer. And later in that year, Hopkins and myself were on the podium together at Misano, second and third. And just what that meant, we went to Japan after that, and for the whole factory, hundreds and hundreds of employees, and what actually meant to everybody, that's where it was cool.
Yeah, that's wicked.
So should have won that Misano race though.
Yeah.
And now that I talked to Casey afterwards, I can't believe how much under pressure he was from me. He tells me 10 years later. But I was like, I'm on the limit thinking, Casey Stoner's there. And he rode away from me at the end of the race. He had more tire left. But he said, if you got in front of me, I had nothing. left. I was on the limit. And I'm thinking, geez, I wish I would have known that at the time.
It would have been good to know that back then.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Go for the path.
So.
That's unreal, man.
Yes.
So, racing against some of the names you've just said, who are some of the quickest or quicker people you've raced against that you thought?
So, look, there's been lots of fast guys and great guys. And so I've never been on track with Mick Doohan from one end, and I've never been on track with Marc Marquez from the other. It's funny, just off subject, my daughter loves Marc Marquez because my sister likes him.
Yep.
So she asked me, are you faster than Marc Marquez? And I said, well, yeah, the one year we were in the same championship, I was quicker because he was on a 125. And So I got it. And she goes, really? And I go, yeah. She goes, oh, that's cool, Dad. Look, there's great. And I see where Valentino Rossi's good. And I could see him on track, and I could see a lot of the time how he made his lap time, and he was impressive. And same with Lorenzo, But Casey Stoner, for me, no one touches him in ability, talent. Just, oh, wow. Like, it's just, I don't know. I just don't know how to do it. Sometimes you'd be on track with him testing and you go, oh, yeah, okay, I'm on the back of Casey and I've got good tyres in, or we've got this and we're going fast. All right, we'll sit there. Then out of one corner, he makes 5 meters on you and you go, oh, okay. Next corner, like 2 corners later, another 5. And you just don't know where. And then all of a sudden, he's like 2 seconds up the road and you're like, how did that happen? Like, he's just unbelievable. We used to go, like, these things are quick, right? Like, you accelerate quicker than a Formula One car. Good start is like 2.2 seconds to 100. Yeah. First gear does 175 k's an hour. So you know, crazy. Like, it's 5 seconds to 0 to 200 k's an hour. You know, like they move. Your stomach comes up when you haven't been on one for a while. Like, you leave pit lane, you haven't ridden one for 4 weeks in the off season, and you flick the pit lane speed limiter off and you accelerate and you go, Jesus, that's right, they're fast, you know? And then we used to go testing, and I remember sitting there with a few of the other guys like Caparossi and Hopkins, and we'd all have bets on what Casey's first lap time would be.
Oh, no way.
And you would guess around within a quarter of a second of the lap record, because that would be his first flying lap from having a month off ridden one. And he's the only guy that could do it. And in my mind, I reckon that's part of the problem that Valentino Rossi had with Casey Stoner, is that he'd never been on track with someone with so much talent that he didn't know how to deal with it. His pure speed. And I reckon that hurt Rossi.
Oh, for sure.
You know, for sure it hurt him. Yeah, Casey maybe didn't deal with it always the best way with the media and different situations. But, I mean, from he had it speed over everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's funny. Everyone says that. A lot of people say he's one of the most
common
naturally
answer.
Talented riders.
Yeah, but he still understood what he was doing, and he knew how to give information back. But get speed out of a motorcycle. I just like I say, I could see greats like Rossi, and he'd be quicker than you, but you could see how he was getting that speed out, and you would use that. But Casey, you go, I don't even know where that come from. Yeah. It's just another world. He was a real alien. Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think Mark's a bit the same.
It seems like it, yeah.
I wish I was still as fast as I used to be, and that I could get on a track and actually ride with him and see where he makes what he's like, you know. So yeah, but I'm way too slow now, and he's way too fast.
Do you still keep in touch with Casey?
Yeah, we stay in touch a little bit. We're probably more friendly now than when we were racing each other. Yeah. We got on a bit when we were racing because we're the only two sort of traveling from Australia. To races occasionally. We see each other around, and I'd known him since I was 11 or 12 years old. But we went to England the same year. When I went to World Supersport, he went to Spanish Championship, and then we ended up MotoGP the same year. It's different paths, and but yeah, now I think we get on better than ever, and I got a lot of respect for him, and I think he's got a lot of respect for what I did in the day as well. So we got girls, both got 2 girls, nearly similar ages. Our wives know each other, so yeah, we get on quite well.
Oh, that's really nice. That's nice to hear, because he's up in the Gold Coast.
Yeah, he's only a couple of hours away from here, so we see each other a bit. It's good fun.
Yeah, no, that's cool, and it's amazing with the success that Aussies have had in Grand Prix and World Superbike racing. Like, you know, it's obviously not a massive population compared to the States or England or Spain, but we seem just to be so successful. You know, I know it's maybe it's from speedway or flat track.
I think it's the flat track, the dirt track racing back in the day. But everyone's caught on, especially since the social media era and everything's changed. And now these guys are riding bikes. They're wearing out flat track bikes and super motard bikes and motocross bikes and those little ovales, and there's all that sort of stuff these days that I think it's changed a lot since I was racing. But I think, and even earlier than my era, you know, Mick Doohan came through the dirt track background. I think you get a good understanding of how to feel a motorcycle, and because when you start road racing, the last thing you want to do is start crashing a lot. First of all, it's the speed's high and it hurts, and there wasn't the safety aspect they got now. Yeah. And the second one, it costs a lot, you know, so you can't afford to do it. So you you sort of grew up on your dirt bikes where the Europeans didn't really. And I think that's where the Aussies and the Yanks sort of had that edge of bike control and bike feeling. Yeah.
A lot of things like wet weather, like obviously you're a bit of a wet weather expert looking at Le Mans 07. Now I think those low grip, flat track background helps that as well.
Definitely helped that. That was a big thing for me. And it gave me understanding, like when I had to turn everything off and how to feel a bike and control it. You know, that's sort of what I did. The other thing is I think for the rain, it was a bit of a leveler. We lacked a few things at times, and then it took away grip, it took away speed, it took away... so it made it a bit more even, and we had more of an opportunity.
I love that story you said before about how you had to turn things off, turn things up. Because you just have to think of it in the fly, and that shows real skill.
Well, that you'd be surprised how much work these guys are doing these days. You know, they're playing with ride height device buttons.
Yeah, wow.
They're changing engine maps. You're changing engine brake control. You're playing with traction control. It's not just sitting on. And you got to remember, you're doing that on a bike that's got 300 horsepower and it wants to throw you off the back. So even down a straight, which is you're only on it for not a lot of time, a couple of seconds, and you're still fighting the thing, and you might have to pull a tear off as well, and you got to read your pit board, and you got to push this button. It's
especially Valencia last night, like you're sitting on the straight for 5 seconds, and that's it. And there's no back straight really.
No, so the back straight, that kink through there is flat, and it's spinning. So you're working hard. You're earning your money.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you don't think about that, like how much they actually have to do on the bike.
It's more than you think, you know. So there's no ship to shore communication. So you go through all the possible scenarios you think might happen with your crew chief generally, and they'll put in different settings that you can play with electronically, and you go from there. So if you're feeling tire wear or whatever, you're going to make the change. The team might tell you or encourage you if they see sort of some signs. They might put something on the pit board, but that's the only way they can communicate with you. Sorry.
Did you have any messages on the dash or anything back in your day?
No,
it was
nothing.
all pit board.
All pit board.
No mapping 8.
No mapping 8. No. Didn't come up on my pit board either.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, it's funny, isn't it? So I love that Grassini did that for Fabio. I thought that was awesome. That's a good sense of humor.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a crack, I reckon. So all that meant was you got 5 laps to go. Give it all. Don't sit behind him and let him win the championship. No.
That's all right.
Well, why would you if you're almost out of a ride anyway?
Well, that's it, So
go for glory.
Although I reckon maybe that changed what he did in Valencia a little bit.
Yeah, I think he had him.
I reckon.
Yeah.
He had more speed.
Definitely.
I know Pecco was stopping the bike in the middle of the corners, but I think, let's think about it. Pecco Bagnaia is a VR46 Academy rider, right?
Yeah, Rossi was at the pit wall. He had the contact.
He's trying to get on that motorbike. Last thing you're going to do is, even though it wouldn't have changed the championship result, but you're not going to.
No, but
Yeah, I think Fabio had shown enough anyway. If he doesn't have a full-time ride on that bike, I'll be very shocked.
I think a lot of people will be.
Yeah. He deserves it.
100%.
I think so.
Yeah.
You raced a Suzuka 8-hour?
Once.
What year was that?
05.
Okay. How was that?
It was for the factory Honda.
Yeah.
So I was racing World Superbike at the same time, and they had 2 factory Honda bikes. It was 7 Stars cigarette company livery, and we had bike 7 and bike 11. That's the factory Honda bikes. Always famously those numbers, even from when Rossi rode it.
Yeah,
Edwards was always the 7, the 11, and so I was there with Fujiwara, and the other bike was Ukawa and Kianari.
Oh yeah,
Richie Kianari, and we finished second, and they won.
Wow! What a day
through
out.
the first pit stops, it got sorted out, and we weren't really allowed to challenge our teammates because. So it's interesting with HRC. I got told at the time, this is 05, basic numbers, but they said our MotoGP budget's 50 million euros. We don't have a budget for Suzuka 8-hour. We just win. So that's what it takes. So in the middle of that year, when I'm doing the 8-hour, I went over testing. I was going backwards and forwards from Europe. one of the tests was straight after Misano. I remember it. I finished second in the second race, both races in Misano. The second race finished second as well. And podium, quick interviews, had to cut some of them short. Quickly get out of the leathers, changed into a helicopter to Bologna Airport, Bologna, Frankfurt, Nagoya, into a taxi, drove to the track, and I was about half an hour later from when I got to the circuit that I was on the bike doing a long run.
That is
and then we're testing, and then fly back to Europe. And the other thing was, so the tires were different on the bikes. So I had a Tenkata bike in World Superbike. So Tenkata built Honda on WP suspension, Pirelli tires, with no electronics. And then the Superbike, the factory one, was on Michelin tires with shower suspension, different brakes. They had Brembo, we had Nissan. And then they had a different sort of ECU system, which had some basic electronics. So I might have been as well riding a bloody BMW as opposed to, it was so different to my other bikes. So I'm going backwards and forwards. And I reckon it had a little bit to do with maybe why we didn't win the World Superbike Championship as well. Just around a couple of those races, I was getting a lot of seconds and thirds where I probably should have won a couple of races. Okay. But it's if buts and maybes. Maybe it wasn't. But yeah, it was a cool experience, but bloody hard work. And especially riding for factory Honda where the pressure is that we do win. So you couldn't go too fast. You couldn't go too slow. You know, like for example, the lap time, we need you to do a 209.5, not a 209.4, not a 209.6. We need 20 laps at a 209.5. Reel them off.
I wonder how long it's going to take for these Japanese manufacturers to be up there again.
In GP?
Yeah, MotoGP, yeah. Because that's the sort of thing
that all depends on the rules, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny in MotoGP. So the sporting rules are decided by the Manufacturers Association, the MSMA. So Dorna don't really have any. They have a little bit of say, but they can't dictate the rules. So the rules are decided by the manufacturers, and any rule change is a unanimous decision by the manufacturers. So Ducati just say no to anything they don't want.
Is that right?
Well, I'm probably being a bit harsh on them.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, the Japanese are very different. They're very loyal. They're very respectful.
Yeah.
And when the new manufacturers were coming in, that's why concessions were designed, and they were trying to help other manufacturers catch up to them. But when it's the other way around, I don't think it's so. It's the same way. Let's put it that way. Yeah. I don't think it's the same.
Yeah, they seem to have some pull in that Paddock.
Well, and they got 8 motorbikes on the grid.
Yeah.
So imagine if everyone kicks up a stink and Dorna go to them and say, you're going to change it, they'll go, oh, we'll just pull our 8 bikes out.
Yeah.
What have you got?
And that's it.
Like, that's right.
There's no race then. So
you got 2 Yamahas and a few Hondas. So
it'd be interesting if VR46 go to Yamaha in 2025.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this before. I think it's going to be a good thing for the sport.
I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good. I think it fits the Rossi thing. I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I hope they do it right in when Tech 3 were with Yamaha, they didn't have the same Yamahas. And that was for a couple of reasons. Yamaha couldn't supply 4 equal bikes, and also Tech 3 didn't have the budget to pay for the lakes. They're very expensive. You know, it costs them a lot of money every year.
Yeah.
And I think Aprilia have got that issue right now where the 2 factory bikes are very different to the 2 RNF bikes, and that doesn't really help you develop. So I hope Yamaha do it right with VR46 and that the bikes are close enough to equal that they can push forward, you know.
Yeah.
So,
it's a good point you make.
I think Honda do it pretty well.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
They just need to get their act together now.
Well, it's just, it's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Well, Zarco is going to help on that.
I hope so.
That bike.
I hope so. And you need Repsol Honda up there. Like, they are the team.
It's I don't know, when I was growing up, Mick doing on a Repsol Honda, and even when you talk to Casey, it's the team you wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And even Marquez says it now, it's the team you dream about riding for. It's a big thing leaving, you know, like let's face it, it's all the greats have been there. So.
Yeah, that's all right.
Rossi even rode from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
it's like the Ferrari of Formula 1.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very much so. So now it's going to be interesting. Big changes. The Tuesday test. I don't know when you're going to release this, whether that'll be out by then, but that's going to be.
We can't wait.
Like, obviously, there's the big now. There's Mark going to the Duke, but it's Rins on a Yamaha.
Yeah.
What's that going to do? Zarco on the Honda.
Acosta.
Marini. Acosta coming in on a bike. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Morbidelli on a Ducati.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
How do you think Marquez will go on the Duke?
I think he's going to be very fast.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be really wrong because I haven't seen anyone like him. It's almost like the Ducati has a system, and if you can work those systems to the best, you'll get the most out of it. And Mark's never had to do that. He's sort of always been able to ride a normal type motorbike, if you like, and get the most out of it through himself. But he's so good on the front end. He's so good into corners. I just think the others, I think they're going to, I don't know. I just don't think they'll see which way it went. But
wow,
hopefully I'm wrong. And hopefully it's a close championship. So
is he your tip for next year? First
right
year?
now, he hasn't even tested yet. I know. Yeah, he'll be hard to beat. Martin will be stronger than Bagnaia.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
A good call.
Yeah.
Bezek, because he's got that experience now. He's won a lot of races. He's challenged for a championship. I think Bastianini, if he's fit, could be strong in a lot of races. Bezecchi, I don't think Aprilia are going to do anything with the guys that got on the bikes.
We always say that.
Yeah.
They need Quartararo on the bike.
Alesia's gonna. He's got one more. He's going to retire at the end of next year, so
Yeah.
he's in retirement mode. So he's just filling up the pension tank, isn't he? And then, I mean, I really really like Maverick Vinales. He's a great guy away from the track.
Yeah.
Like I get on really well with him, but he's just never going to do it there. He's just not a racer. If there was prizes for the testing world championship, he'd be brilliant, wouldn't he? You know, and a lot of people say that.
It'd be the GOAT.
Yeah, unreal. You know. And he's won races on a Yamaha before, so he's shown how he can do it, but he's just not a racer.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one. Be good to see Oliveira on a competitive Aprilia and fit.
Yep.
Yeah.
KTM, I think Binder's going to be strong.
Yep.
Really strong. I hope Jack as well. But at the moment, you got to say Binder's got his edge. So, yeah.
Yeah, Jack's a hard one throughout the year. It's just that so frustrating.
Yep.
So frustrating.
And look, he says they're working on it and they're improving it, and it's good. And he felt really comfortable in that race in Valencia until he made that mistake, and that things are progressing. But for me, it's a little bit of the same story as Ducati, where he'd use the tire harder than his teammate.
Yeah.
To do the same lap time.
Yeah, that's his riding style as well. It's just,
I mean, he's quick over one lap, and he can put himself at the front.
Yeah.
But he just can't seem to get the most out of it for a whole Grand Prix. So, yeah, it's either him and his crew or just him or whatever. He's got to work on something. So, yeah. So we'll see.
That's a good shout.
Oh, it's going to be exciting. And I think, and then going into 2025 as well, it's going to be a whole
rider
new
market is going to be.
Oh,
You know what? I reckon they will be signings before the first race of 24.
Yeah.
It's just like it just seems to happen earlier and earlier.
Well, that Furman
Aldeguer
in Moto2, he's just shown an amazing talent the last 5. Has he won 5 in a row? 4?
4, I think.
So they're talking him Primac for 2025 already signed up. So he's going to be another aspect going in the next couple of years because he's shown some amazing talent. And it shows, like you spoke about before, once you get click with the bike, if you got the talent, you're unstoppable.
Oh, exactly. What's interesting isn't he from the same town as Pedro Acosta? He's from, I think the same town. He's 1 year younger. Like they grew up sort of racing
Something
together.
in the water there.
Yeah. Bloody bottle that water up.
You watch all these young kids move to whatever the name of the town is. Exactly. No, it's interesting, isn't it? But he's and impressive, really impressive for an 18-year-old. And he's not small.
No.
He's not like a little.
Dude.
No. He's quite tall.
He'd look fine on a MotoGP bike.
Yeah, I think so. Very much so. And I think he'll pedal one around quite quick as well. So. Yes.
Yeah, we can't wait. It's gonna be so interesting.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. Well, let's see. Mark hasn't even sat on the Ducati yet, but I think he's got a good team around him. I think he's crew chief. I think that team's set up well. They've proven they can win races. With 2 riders, they've had 3 different riders on the podium. In Ducati. So I think it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait. And we always kind of talk about it as well. We still kind of say that Marquez and Quartararo still look like they have the most talent. It's just they're on not good packages.
I think so. And I think, both of them, but I think Mark still has another edge over Quartararo.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, but could be wrong.
Respect where it's due. He's still the best on the grid by a mile.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see when he gets on the Duke, And how good his Duke is, because he'll be on a year-old one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, championship winning bike.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
So maybe it's better at the start of the year. Who knows? But maybe
normally
not.
it's sometimes the case.
It can
most
be.
of the times.
Yeah.
Can be. So.
So, Chris, we are great fans of MotoGP, watched it over years and years and years, and big fan of the pre-race coverage, Fox Sports.
Yes.
What happened there? Did obviously Fox Sports went in a different direction?
Yep.
How did you feel about the whole situation?
Oh, I loved it when I first got the call up. So my first ever TV gig was with Channel 10 in 2013. I think it was 2013.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
Rusty used to be on.
Yeah, Rusty. I did it with Rusty for the Australian Grand Prix, and Darryl Beattie was down on the track, and it was cool working with Rusty and Daz, and I did interviews with them as a rider. Like they're just, and Darryl Beattie's one of my heroes. They're just great blokes. And then I got the call up for Fox, great production team. Well, it was actually Speed TV initially, who I signed for or worked for. And Jess Yates hosted, Kevin McGee, myself, 2014. And then Speed got shut down and it all got moved to Fox. It was all owned by Fox. It's just rebranding. And we had a few different hosts, but I was with Kev for a long time. And I really enjoyed it. Loved it because it kept me involved in the sport, kept me connected with a lot of the teams and journalists in Europe. And I really enjoyed the TV work. And then I think so I used to travel to Sydney for every race, and then maybe go to Europe, or normally go to Europe once a year to cover a race or two.
Yeah, I remember that. And it was, I think, maybe Assen one year, or from memory,
and I did Bruno one year. And
it was interesting
Austria.
putting the coverage on and like, oh, they're
there. We're there. Yeah. So that was the budget. They could send us for one or two races, like one trip. So, but the rest of it we did at Sydney, and it was really cool, and great production team and really good group of people we worked with. But then COVID hit, and I was home with my kids, and my kids were getting older, and I was like, you know what? I actually am enjoying not flying to Sydney.
Yeah, that's a big effort.
Every weekend,
it's a big effort. Getting up and then, as 3 weeks
and then you got to
watch
everything and be on top of everything because I'm still a fan. I still keep on top of it.
Yeah.
But when you're live on TV and there's a delay, or you got to be able to talk about everything.
Yeah.
And so you are working, because you've got to be able to cover lots of scenarios and situations But I enjoyed not going. So I said, oh, look, I'm going to take a year off. And then it was 2 years off. And then I used to just do the Australian Grand Prix for them. But then their whole Fox changed everything, and production team changed, and they got rid of a few good people. So this year I decided to work for Channel 10. Well, Channel 10 gave me a call and said, will you be interested? And I said, yeah, I will actually. Yeah. And so I went and worked for them for the Australian Grand Prix, and really different from inside that world working for a free-to-air network. They have a lot bigger budgets and they do everything very well. I'm not saying Fox don't do it well, but it's more for mainstream media too, so it's not as technical when you're talking about stuff. But they love the color and they do it well. So I really enjoyed it with 10 this year. But I don't like the situation that Fox don't have the pre-race show anymore. Because when I left, Magoo was still there, and Damien Cudlin sort of took my spot. And I think they were doing a great job. Yeah. But it's powers to be. You got to. So Fox is a massive company, and there just seems to be like another level of management and another level of management, and then the bosses and people make calls that they might not even watch MotoGP, never even seen the race. And I was there for 8 years, I think, and no feedback, no bosses, never really spoke to anyone apart from my production team. No media training, did nothing. Just here you go, you're in front of the camera. I remember talking to Kev once. He's funny because he's had none either, and you can tell. And I love Magoo. I think he's the greatest player in the world, and he's really good, and he's got great stories. But I remember sitting there, and because there's like 3 or 4 different cameras, and I'm like, after a couple of rounds, I'm like, so Kev, like, when do you talk to the camera? Do you like when you're doing this? Or he goes, I don't worry about a camera. I never look at the camera. Don't worry about talking to a bloody camera. And then I remember the host at the time, and he's like, oh no, Chris, like if you want to actually make a point, then you sort of point down the camera and you finish off your statement.
Because the light goes on top of the camera and stuff.
So you know which one's on, and there's normally a screen, and you got people talking in your ear as well. It's just quite full on. You got to a director, so telling you which shot, or maybe telling you to move or whatever, and then the producer telling you what's coming up next, or while you're talking, they might say we need more on this, or that cut it off. We need to go to a break, or so there's a lot going on. You're busy, but Magoo's he is an old school motorbike rider from way back, and loves it.
Well, like you were saying, this was before the pod. He was an employee for Fox for 26 years.
96 or 97.
The longest serving employee.
And then he got the axe as well. But like I say, new management comes in and they're like, we're going to do this better, and we're going to do, and then nothing happens. So
MotoGP fans are passionate fans.
Yes,
and they're loyal fans.
Yes,
so that was probably a big thing.
I think so. I don't think, and they got it exclusive as well. So I don't think it was the right thing. You know, they took it from 10, or not took it from 10. They got it exclusively. So it was on 2net, it was on free to air and pay, and then it goes exclusive, and then they cut out the Australian content. Anyway. It's sort of, I don't know. Anyway, who knows? I'm not the one paying the bucks. So it's one of those. We will never probably know the full story. Anyway,
that's all right. But we do miss it though, and we did love Kevin's rants.
They were cool. So did we, and because we didn't know what we were getting. The good times was when I was with Chris Stubbs. Yeah. So Stubbsy, I really like Stubbsy, and on-air talent is brilliant, and he could pull a show together. Some of the stuff going on behind the scenes, and he's so professional and brings it all, and then. Sometimes afterwards we'd sort of have a bit of a debrief, and he'd go, I don't know what Kev was on tonight. Like, you throw him something and you didn't know what you were going to get back. But other nights he'd be brilliant, and, you know. But that was just Magoo, and
we found that a little bit with Simon Crafar at the start. With his coverage, I thought, what is he talking about? It was so different hearing a Kiwi on the coverage, and then now he's just amazing to listen to and love. Yeah, and loved. You know,
he is loved, and his technical ability is good. I've known Simon for a long time. I'm really good mates with Simon. Yeah. So we lived in Andorra. I could see his house from mine. Like, we lived on the other side of the valley.
We spoke to him at GP this year, and he's been lived in Andorra for
he was there
20 years or something.
Longer, I reckon. Longer. Because I went there in 2003. I moved there, and he was well and truly set up. Yeah. There then.
Because his wife's from there, and his
kids. No, his wife's Kiwi.
Oh, his wife's Kiwi.
But they're all set up there. And
all set up, yeah.
The kids... his kids were young when I was living there. Yep. They're grown up now, but it's funny because they went to an international school, so they speak Spanish, French, Catalan, and then English. But they could just flick languages, but their English is a full Kiwi accent. So it's hilarious when you go So they go from Spanish to French, and then they go to English, and it's full Kiwi. So it's quite funny. But no, I've known Sam for a long time, so I get on quite well with him.
Yeah, he's good to listen to.
He is. Really good.
Yeah, and lovely guy.
Yeah,
lovely person. So
he is, and he's passionate about the sport. He just loves it. He loves it. But he was the same when he was racing. I remember I was a fan of his as a rider. You know, he gave 100% all the time. So.
Yeah.
Yes. No, cool bloke.
Yeah.
Do you still keep an eye on World Superbikes? Still watch that? What's your thoughts on that?
I do, not as in depth, but I watch most of the races. Yeah. So love the racing.
Yeah.
Love that it's close. It's going to be exciting next year too, because obviously we've got some rider movement there, and some rule changes, or not rule changes, but modifications to each of the manufacturers. So Kawasaki getting a few more revs.
Yeah.
There's that rider and bike combination weight limit. Whether that's going to affect anything with Bautista. I think Alvaro is equal in riding ability to Toprak and Johnny Ray generally, and the Ducati has a step. Is an advantage. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how Toprak goes on that Beamer, because hasn't been able to win many races yet with a number of different riders, but they haven't had someone of his level either. So, and I think Jonathan Ray is going to be quite strong on the Yamaha. I think the Yamaha's a pretty good package.
Yeah.
So I think Johnny's not any younger now, and I don't think he's at the peak of his career, but I think he'll win a few races. Whether he can win another championship, but he'll definitely win some races, I reckon. So yeah, should be good. And then there's some young guys coming in as well, isn't there? Remy Gardner, I think, very strong in testing. He's had a full season under his belt now. I think we should see a few podiums out of Remy.
That'd be good.
He's definitely fun. Look, he's a Moto2 world champion. He's not.
He can ride a bike.
He's not a hack. Yeah. You know, the guy can ride bikes.
We forget things so quickly.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
Like Juan Mir, for instance, Morbidelli. Like these guys are guns, and we just forget about
Juan Mir, for his talent. He came in and did a few wildcards in Moto3. Was on the podium in his second one or something, and the next year was Moto3 champion.
Yeah,
you know? and then did a year in Moto2 and then got signed up by Suzuki. And now he's a MotoGP world champion. Like the guy hasn't been there a long time. He's got a lot of talent, and then just like Repsol Honda, just
destroying it.
Poor fella. Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. So Marini's going, obviously. I think.
I don't think it's been announced, but
that's an interesting aspect. It's going to be another.
So he got 2 years there, which is interesting because Repsol were offering most people 1 year on the bike. But it seems like he's got 2 years.
Do you think Rossi had an impact on that?
Well, he's his manager, isn't he?
Yeah, and his brother.
and his brother.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it is an interesting move. And he obviously feels like he wants to ride for a factory. And and I can see advantages because when you are a factory rider, you are developing things, you're testing things change quickly. Like even when I was with Suzuki, you know, different chassis come in and it's ideas you want. When you're with a satellite team, you don't really get any of that say, but you don't have that responsibility either. You're just there to try and improve over the weekend and get faster and faster and faster. Yeah. You're not developing a motorbike as well. So Lucas, he's an articulate guy. It might suit him that role. You know,
he's not your standard MotoGP rider. He's very different. Yeah, very very different. Very calculated. Yeah, I personally think he needs to up his aggression a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit more.
And I found that, and we spoke about that on the pod many times. And I think that's just his next thing. It's same as like you look at Joel Calso in Moto3, little gun, but just needs. These Spanish kids are just so ruthless.
Yes, they are.
He just doesn't have that edge.
No, that sort of fighter. In him. So it's going to be interesting next year. He should be. Hopefully
on a better bike.
Much better bike. So, but he's shown some speed the last part of this year. I think that podium at Phillip Island gave him some confidence. And
It was cool. We were sitting at turn one, I think, for the race, and we'll sit next to one of his cousins or something, and they were going off. It was a good
half of Darwin was down, wasn't
it? Yeah. They were from. They looked like they were from Darwin.
What were you saying?
I just rough around the edges.
No, it's just good though. It's good. I got some mates from that. Growing up in a country town. Yeah, some of my friends down at Phillip Island were. They knew we were from the country.
Did you have any like good after race parties? Was it pretty big and popular back then, or was it pretty?
I was really boring. My wife was not.
Yeah,
Tony liked to party hard. I was focused. My whole thing was about going faster on a motorbike. But we had some good dudes, and I think the Superbike days were way more relaxed. I think through that early 2000s when I was in the Superbike paddock with Colin Edwards and Ben Bostrom and Troy Corser and Bayless, and there was pretty much a barbecue or a bit of a get together after every race.
That's cool.
The motorhomes would be parked up, there'd be barbies fired up, be a few beers going around, and everyone just having a good time. MotoGP, it happened occasionally, but a lot less. And then I noticed when I came back to Superbike with Kawasaki at the end, it had changed a lot too. It's just when money comes in and it all gets more serious.
More commercialized.
It was really a fun times when I was there in the early Superbike days. There was a guy I knew, Pav, an American, he worked for the American Air Force. He lived in Germany, and he used to just come to some races. I used to get him pass, and he'd come in with his F-150 American pickup and a big Weber Barbie on the back, and he used to set up in the paddock and cook inch-thick T-bones that he flew in on an Air Force plane like a week earlier. It's like we had a good time in World Superbike in those days, and I was winning races. Everything was really fun in those times. Like you say, when it's all going well, it's good. Yeah. So
going back to your MotoGP years, 08, 09. 09, you had a really good year. I think you scored points in pretty much every race.
Yeah, 09. Yeah, probably.
I'm telling the story.
You probably know the stats for me. Yeah, that could be right.
Did the novelty wear off for you after that while, or was being a factory rider in the MotoGP was just the dream come true?
No, it was what I wanted.
Yeah,
but it was my job. So, it's funny. If I was very focused at what I did. I was sometimes maybe a little bit too much. Like even when I won at Le Mans, for example, or I had 7 podiums. So let's just go off any of those. I would be straight back after the podium. I would find my main guys that I spoke to, so crew chief, data engineer, project leader, suspension technician, all those guys, and we'd debrief as soon as possible because I had all this information in my head. And I used to write reports as well after the race, like Monday, Tuesday, as I was digesting stuff, and I would send them a couple of page long reports of what I was feeling on the bike, and my crew chief would add that to his report that would go back to Japan. So
interesting.
So for me, that was my job, and I worked hard and I tried everything to get everything out of it. If you like. So,
leave no stone unturned. Yeah.
It's interesting though. You're young and you make mistakes, and I wish I could go back with the knowledge I've got now. Yeah, you know, the things you perhaps do. But everyone says that.
Everyone says that. Yeah,
it's just the way it is.
But you're a Grand Prix winner, and they'll never take it away from you.
I know they can't take that away. Exactly. No. Yep. So I think I may be not that it's much of a stat, the only person that's won a Supersport race, a Superbike race, and a Grand Prix. Premier class. Yeah.
That's honestly that's a big stat because a lot of World Superbike riders have had the attempt of going over, and they just can't seem to get the grips of the prototypes.
So there's been a few guys that have gone. So Bayless won one, but he was there for 3 years. I was there for 4. So you know, it's not like we had great long we didn't have 10-year Grand Prix careers. Edwards went there, was for a long time, but never won a race.
Yeah.
James Ben Spies won one.
Yeah.
But was only there a couple of years, really.
Toseland.
Toseland. Didn't win one. I don't think he stood on the podium.
No, I don't think he did.
In MotoGP. Showed speed at times.
Yeah.
But didn't come together for whatever reason. There hasn't been many guys that have come from Superbike because Grand Prix, you're developing through those junior, and they've made it even harder now with all the junior classes and the feeders in, and Dorna really want it to go that way. They don't want to pull people from other championships. They want to feed them up. So whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but I like it. I like the Superbike way and going that way.
I think it's cool, like seeing yourself, guys like Colin Edwards, Troy Bayliss, and all those guys come over. Really brought a different aspect when they were riding Grand Prix, you know, and it was, and it always seemed like they had a bit more personality as well.
Yeah. I think you're brought up in the Grand Prix paddocks, and it is very insular.
Yeah,
you know, and you're in this little world, and I know the media they used to come to me and ask for an interview, and then the PR guy from the team would be like, "We didn't organise it." I'm like, "Oh, they just come and ask me." I said, "Yeah, like doesn't matter." But that's Grand Prix now, you know.
Yeah.
Right. You got to go through the media managers, and you got to do this. You go like back in the day at Superbike, Journo would come up and say, "You got time? Oh yeah, come back in like an hour, and I've got 20 minutes. Yeah, cool. Yeah, you know, it was just easy, but they seem to make it hard.
Yeah, I know.
But it is to protect some of the big names, and then look, some of the riders love it. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting seeing we know the back of the pits at Phillip Island. We think that's MotoGP, but apparently the facilities down there
it's the worst in the world. It's the worst
compared to like them walking through all the fans and we're going to the toilet. We're standing next to Marc Marquez.
Yeah,
at the urinal. Yeah, like it's just crazy. And like we think that's how it is normally, but it's not like that in Europe.
No,
obviously.
Definitely not like that in Europe. In Europe, the riders are in their motorhomes, and the hospitality units are very big, and the facilities around are much greater. Yeah, Phillip Island, it's unique, and it's hard for the Fox family to justify upgrading all that facility for what 2 races a year. You got World Superbike and MotoGP.
No supercars anymore,
and for domestic championships, it's fine.
Yeah,
you know, it does the job. So I get that. But
I wonder if they'll get an ultimatum one day.
I reckon it's been on the cards for a while, but it's an interesting scenario, isn't it? Because the Grand Prix is run here by the Australian Grand Prix Corporation.
Yep.
And then they lease the circuit off. Who knows what goes on politically in those loops. Yeah.
Have you ridden on the bend yet?
No.
Okay.
I've never been there.
Yeah. Nor of us.
So I'd be keen to one day. Yeah.
Because it's sort of like the premier facility now, I suppose. So.
That's what they say. Yes. Yeah. The Fox family are building another track in Melbourne near an airport they own. Is that correct?
Down near Avalon.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they are. There's plans for it. Yeah, they're going to build a whole facility in like a motorsport park. So.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
You haven't heard of that. There you go.
And they're going to have like car dealerships and stuff there as well, so you can test the cars on the track.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think it's been in the plans for a few years. Yeah. which is a cool scenario.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah,
But I think nothing is going to be like that. Like we always talk about the circuits, Phillip Island. They were drawn on a map around a paddock.
Yeah, that's
not,
it.
Not on a computer.
No, exactly.
Like the worst thing you can hear is a Herman Tilke design circuit.
I know.
Because it's just designed on a computer and you just don't get that same...
It doesn't create for the same
No.
racing. Look at the Grand Prix we get at Phillip Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sensational, isn't it?
Coming over that rise, seeing the water into turn one. Like there's just nothing else
And
like it.
no bloody green paint. It's grass on the
Yeah,
edge of the track.
yeah.
No one's going to run off.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
Casey and I were banging on about this years ago in the safety commission. Just leave the grass there. No one will go off.
Yeah.
They always want more bitumen and then paint it and then they just run out there.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's
takes away.
Yeah. They
racing.
say it's for safety, but I don't know. I don't like it.
No, neither do we.
No, the grass on tracks, that's the big difference for me. And
Yeah.
we talk about this, yeah.
Look, we want to make it as safe as possible, but if it's dangerous, no one's going to ride out there.
Yeah.
You know. So
Well, you look at even turn one at Valencia on the weekend.
Yep.
They run right outside to the pit lane to cut right in.
Yeah.
And then you look at Martin running wide on the first
Yes.
corner. He wouldn't got anywhere near that spot if there was grass there.
no, that's it. Or even just gravel.
Yeah.
If it's just a gravel
Yeah,
runoff
yeah, yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
So it changes their mindset, as
Yeah.
you would know.
It does
completely.
change your mindset
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
Yep. It changes very much so. Yep. So anyway, so it is what it is.
It's a good thing that Phillip Island though is like it is so far away, and as soon as you cross over the bridge, it's just like a hub. It's just
Yep.
like
Yeah.
we always like shit on Phillip Island for its terrible facilities, and the
weather,
taking a piss next to Lynn Jarvis or something like that, and saying, "Yeah, good race, mate." But like the Saturday night in Cows, it's always just like it's magical. You know, it's the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It goes off, doesn't it? And it is a great atmosphere, and the teams and riders love coming there.
Yeah.
You know, they think it's, and it is cool because it's unique, and you know, just everything about it. And it's close to the coast, and I don't reckon you'll find many riders that'll say they don't like Phillip Island.
Yeah,
I reckon
yeah.
every
Worth
on
the
top,
trip.
top
Yeah.
5 of nearly every rider's list. You know?
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter. All classes all around the world. Yep. Yeah, it's cool, and it's just a good atmosphere. They generally love the Aussie fans. Yeah, I can tell you, everyone loves coming out here.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They just hate the flight, and they all complain about it. The Europeans are funny. They're like, "Oh, all the way to Australia." I used to do that every race,
Yeah.
or not every time,
True,
but I've been doing
yeah.
it like 6 or 7 times a year. Come on, stop complaining.
Well, next year it's interesting. There's a 2-week break before Phillip Island, which is normally pretty rare.
Yeah.
They normally come
It is
straight from either
straight in.
Theyland or...
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting. So they're probably going to be able to come Ho first and then come all the
They
way
might
here.
they might go home. There
Yeah.
might be a few of them that might come out here and stay.
Yep.
But we'll wait and see. Depends how tired they are, because it's seasons now. 20, 21 races. It's hard work.
It's
It is.
massive.
We were speaking to...
I did 17 and 18, I think, in my...
That's your most you've done.
Yeah, 18 was the most. I think 17.
Because we were overhearing John Hopkins, your old teammate in the pits, and he hadn't been home for, I don't know, 2.5 months, he said.
Nah.
And he goes, I wouldn't know how the kids are going. I haven't seen them.
I haven't seen it. It's hard, hey.
Yeah.
It's hard being like in a family, and the mechanics.
Yeah.
How many people are in that paddock?
Yeah.
You know, it affects a lot of people, not just the riders. Yeah.
There's a lot of people in that paddock. Even
Yeah.
like the little Moto3 mechanics and
I
like
know.
there's-
And all those guys, they don't fly business class.
No.
They're in the back of the plane
Yeah,
all the way
yeah.
and everywhere, every weekend. You
Yeah.
know? And they can't make a mistake
yeah.
working on the bike. You know, they might be jet lagged and tired and hungry and
We gotta be
everything
on it.
else. Yes. Not easy.
No.
But they love it, and that's why they do it. So
Yeah,
it's good.
yeah.
Yeah, it's that's the stuff you just don't see. I
You don't
guess.
see, no. The hard
That's
work,
all right.
that's it.
When you were racing in GP, after a few years, like dealing with the like walking through the paddock, was it always pretty chaotic? People trying to always get photos with you.
Yeah, look, it was.
It'd be hard to handle, I reckon.
It didn't really worry me because they're just people that love motorbikes.
Yeah.
And they admire what you're doing. And I think, like, I like motorbikes. That's why I started. So they're going to do it. They've got the same interest. So they're generally, 99% of the people are great people.
Yeah.
You know, you get the odd idiot here and there, but that's in anything, right? So yeah, no, I thought it was part of the job. I never had heaps of fame, if you know what I mean. Like occasionally at restaurants and things, people would come up to me, especially in Spain and Italy. Even England, there was a bit more following, much more than Australia, for example.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine what it would have been like for someone like Valentino or maybe Mark in it's almost real celebrity status,
Yeah.
isn't it? You know, and it's got to be hard work. You know, Mark flies, and Valentino did as well. They were private planes everywhere because they can't get through an airport because it's just people want a piece of them all the time. So, and they never wanted really to do that, but that's what forces upon them. So yeah, it's just the way it is. So it's it must get hard as it gets more. But yeah, I didn't mind it. It's fine. Yeah.
I guess before social media as well.
Oh, geez, I'm glad I raced before social media.
Yeah, because everything was signature back then. Now everything's selfies.
Yeah, selfies are like, people would maybe take photos on phones, but they were pretty crappy. Nokias or, you know, and the photo wasn't great. And they've probably lost that photo by now and all that. But everything, and even just social media, everything's out there in the world these days. Like, yeah, I didn't have a social media page until I stopped racing. Yeah. So, geez, it's different world. You know everything that's going on all the time. Like, it's great being a fan because you see it all, but it'd be hard work being a rider trying to keep, because you're expected to do that as well. So
yeah, different riders handle it in different ways.
Yeah,
like you look at Casey, just wasn't his cup of tea at all.
No,
wasn't his cup of tea. But then you look at other, like behind the pits, Quattararo, you never really see him. But then some riders embrace it.
Yeah,
Jorge Martin's pretty good with the fans.
Yeah.
So it's just different people, different personalities as well.
Different personalities, exactly. That's it, like it. And everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
beautiful.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
You got anything to add, Daniel?
No, not really.
We got a little we got a little present for you.
Oh, you got a present?
Yes.
Do we have it?
It's just over there.
I'll grab it.
Yeah, Daniel will get it.
Here we go.
Yeah. We just got something to add to your collection. It's got to go in front and center though.
All right.
I want a whole new trophy cabinet just for it.
Yeah. I needed to win more trophies. That was the problem.
It can sit on the MotoGP bike, I reckon, this
really?
one.
So let me hopefully not sit on my mic.
Too late.
Yeah.
Too late.
I
So
hear all the noises that come out there.
Ask his missus that one.
Got kicked out. Kicked to the lounge room. This is just a little something from us. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
and
cool.
Shout out to Stacey for helping us out with the helmet. So from us to you, Chris.
All right. Thank you very much. Sweet. I'll have a look at this. You can never have too many helmets, right?
No, they're definitely not.
Well, that's my theory. I get told off for it, but it's my theory.
Just one more. Oh, if I can get it open.
Yeah, it's locked-tight.
We used this bag to carry to the beach yesterday as well. So.
That's why I'm struggling with it. There we go. Oh, cool. Oh, sweet. You've even signed it.
Yeah, those signatures don't mean much, but there you go.
So you never know.
There should be something else in that bag as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think. Is there anything in there?
I just stitched it, didn't I? No. It's that's cool.
We'll give it to you after.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sweet.
So that's to the collection.
Yeah, nice. I'll put that up.
A one of one.
Yeah.
One of one.
I think it's
One of one. We just wanted to say, it's a privilege to obviously meet yourself and Renita.
Yep. Well, you put up with my sister, so
no, she's amazing.
She's awesome. She's very cool.
She's going to be a star one day.
Yeah.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah. You
MotoGP
sure?
presenter.
No, I'm joking. No. She loves it. And look, I feel sorry for her in some ways, but I was racing. She's 11 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So like I said, I started when I was 11. So she was coming to motorbike tracks in mum's tummy, you know.
Yeah.
She's done it her whole life.
Yeah.
So poor girl.
She's told us some pretty cool stories over the years. So.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
She probably remembers them better than me. She hasn't hit her head as many times.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on.
That was awesome.
Just giving us your time is
that's
we
cool,
really
guys.
appreciate it.
I love what you do, and it's great for anyone that can promote the sport. You know, it's a sport we love, and
that's it.
Yeah, I'll be listening and enjoying the rest of them.
Thanks,
beautiful,
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
Cheers, guys.